Have you ever held back from sharing an idea, wearing something you love, or simply being yourself because you worried what others might think? That moment of hesitation where fear of judgment tightens its grip is something we all know too well. It's the voice that whispers, "What if they laugh?" or "What if I'm not good enough?" But here's the truth. That fear isn't just holding you back from small moments. It's stealing your potential, your authenticity, and your peace. And the ancient philosophy of Stoicism, it has the answers you've been searching for. 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his personal journal, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." That single sentence cuts to the heart of why we suffer under the weight of others' judgments and how we can break free. This video isn't just about theory. It's a practical guide to reclaiming your confidence, divided into 22 powerful Stoic insights. We'll explore how to cultivate unshakable self-awareness, build resilience that turns criticism into fuel, and master the art of detachment so you can live by your own standards, not someone else's. These aren't abstract ideas. They're tools tested by time and honed by everyone from ancient philosophers to modern leaders. Imagine waking up tomorrow with a quiet mind, no longer tossed by every opinion or sidelong glance. Picture making decisions from a place of inner strength, not fear. That's the transformation Stoicism offers, and it's within your reach right now. Think of this as your invitation to a different way of living. No more waiting for permission to be bold, to take up space, to own your worth. The journey starts here with insights that will reshape how you see yourself and the world around you. Whether you're facing judgment in your career, relationships, or creative pursuits, these lessons will meet you where you are and give you the courage to move forward. So let's begin, not by fighting the fear, but by understanding it, disarming it, and finally rising above it, the path to freedom from others' opinions. It's closer than you think. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, put it bluntly: some things are within our control and some things are not. Your thoughts, your actions, your values, those are yours to command. But the opinions of others, they belong firmly in the second category. No matter how much you bend or adjust, you can't control what someone else thinks of you. That's the first and most liberating Stoic insight, recognizing that judgment from others falls entirely outside your circle of influence. The Stoics called these external things indifference, not because they don't matter, but because they shouldn't dictate your peace or self-worth. Think about the last time you hesitated before posting online, replaying every possible negative comment in your head, or the moment you changed your outfit because you feared a sideways glance. That anxiety, it's rooted in the illusion that you can or should manage how others perceive you. But here's the reality. People will form opinions based on their own biases, moods, and experiences, none of which you control. A harsh critique says more about the critic than it does about you. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily as emperor, surrounded by flatterers and detractors. His solution: to focus solely on his own character, writing, "It's not what others do or say that disturbs you, but your own judgment of those things." So the next time you feel that familiar tightness in your chest, the fear of being judged, pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, release the weight. Redirect that energy inward toward what you can shape: your integrity, your effort, your growth. Because when you stop outsourcing your confidence to others, you reclaim something far more valuable: your freedom. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who advised emperors, once wrote a letter that cut straight to our modern obsession with external validation. He said, "What does it matter how much ground you cover if you're running in circles chasing applause?" That question hits harder today than ever. We live in a world where likes, followers, and public opinion often feel like the measuring sticks of our worth, but Stoicism offers a radical alternative. Your value isn't something others grant you. It's not a prize to be won or a verdict to be delivered. It's an inner fire you tend yourself day by day through your choices and character. Think about how often we confuse attention for worth. A promotion at work feels like proof we're capable until a critical email makes us doubt everything. A compliment on our appearance lifts us up until a single disapproving glance sends us spiraling. This roller coaster happens because we've handed our self-assessment over to the crowd, letting strangers and acquaintances hold the scorecard of our lives. The Stoics called this a fundamental error. True worth, they argued, comes from virtues like courage, integrity, and wisdom, qualities no one can give or take away. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Not let others' opinions determine, but let the finite, precious nature of life itself guide you." Here's a practice to break the cycle. Grab a journal and write down 3 qualities you genuinely admire in yourself, traits that exist regardless of outside approval. Maybe it's your patience with a difficult project, your willingness to listen when a friend is hurting, or your discipline in sticking to a goal when no one's watching. These are your Stoic anchors. They don't fluctuate with public opinion. They're rooted in who you choose to be, not how you're perceived. Seneca wrote volumes about this distinction, urging his readers to be your own spectator, your own judge. That doesn't mean ignoring feedback or growing arrogant. It means developing an inner compass so steady that praise can't inflate you and criticism can't deflate you. Imagine carrying this mindset into your daily life. A coworker takes credit for your idea. Your worth remains intact. Someone dismisses your passion as silly. Your love for it doesn't dim. This isn't about building a wall against the world, it's about building an unshakable foundation within. Because when you stop outsourcing your self-esteem, you discover something extraordinary. The less you need validation, the more freely you can connect, create, and contribute. Not for clout, but for the quiet joy of living in alignment with what matters most. That's the Stoic secret to standing firm in a world obsessed with surfaces. Your value was never up for debate. It was always yours to define. Marcus Aurelius observed something profound about human nature. When someone tears you down, they're often revealing the cracks in their own foundation. He wrote, "The offender needs pity rather than anger. What would he be like if he acted justly and recognized the truth?" That shift in perspective changes everything. Criticism, especially the kind that feels personal or unfair, usually says far more about the person delivering it than about you. Picture this. A colleague nitpicks your presentation in front of the team, calling it unprofessional while ignoring its substance. Later, you learn they'd been passed over for a lead role, one that required the very skills your work showcased. Their judgment wasn't about your flaws, it was a mirror reflecting their own insecurity. This isn't just theory, it's a pattern you've likely witnessed firsthand. Maybe a family member mocked your career ambitions while quietly resenting their own unfulfilled dreams. Or a friend dismissed your relationship as too perfect while struggling in theirs. The Stoics saw this dynamic clearly. Hurt people hurt people. Epictetus put it bluntly, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. When you react defensively to petty criticism, you hand over your peace to someone who hasn't even earned it. But when you pause and ask, what might this really be about? You reclaim your power. Here's how to apply this insight. Next time someone judges you harshly, resist the urge to internalize it. Instead, play detective. Look for clues about their struggles. Are they threatened by your confidence because they lack their own? Are they projecting past failures onto your efforts? This isn't about excusing cruelty. It's about freeing yourself from taking it personally. Marcus Aurelius faced constant political sabotage during his reign, yet his journal reveals zero bitterness. Instead, he wrote, "When another blames you or hates you, remember they're doing what seems right to them." That detachment isn't cold, it's compassionate. It recognizes that those who judge most fiercely are often fighting silent battles with themselves. So the next time criticism stings, try this Stoic reframe. Imagine holding up a shield that lets arrows of judgment clatter to the ground, revealing the trembling hand that shot them. Your worth isn't diminished by someone else's inability to see it. In fact, their reaction might just be the clearest sign you're on the right path. Epictetus had a simple but revolutionary piece of advice for his students. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. He wasn't interested in how eloquently they could debate Stoic principles. He cared about one thing: were they living them? That shift from worrying about perceptions to focusing on actions is where real freedom begins. Picture an Olympic sprinter stepping onto the track. The crowd might cheer or boo, but their noise doesn't change how she prepares her stance, how she channels years of discipline into those explosive seconds. Her job isn't to control the audience's reaction, it's to run her race. That's the essence of Stoic wisdom. Your power lies in what you do, not in how it's received. This isn't just about grand stages, it's in the quiet moments too. The artist who paints despite fear of ridicule, the entrepreneur who launches an unconventional idea knowing skeptics will scoff, the parent who chooses patience when others might snap. These are all acts of quiet defiance against the tyranny of opinions. Marcus Aurelius framed it as a daily practice. Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be one. Notice he didn't say, convince others you're good. The measuring stick is your own effort, your own alignment with what's right, not the applause meter. Here's a challenge to make this real. Think of one thing you've hesitated to do because you feared judgment. Maybe it's singing karaoke despite being off-key, wearing bold colors in a neutral office, or finally starting that side project people call unrealistic. Now ask yourself, if no one were watching, if opinions vanished like smoke, what action would you take today? That uncovered desire is your compass. The Stoics believed we're at our best when we act from integrity, not approval. Like a tree growing toward light regardless of who admires its branches, your growth depends on staying true to your nature, not contorting for spectators. Consider the musician who plays from the heart in an empty room versus the one who performs for clicks and trends. Which one sleeps peacefully at night? That's the difference between being chained to opinions and being fueled by purpose. Epictetus put it bluntly, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because those who chase external validation inevitably dilute their authenticity. But those who focus on right action regardless of noise build something unshakable, a life that's wholly theirs. So the next time hesitation whispers, what will they think? Replace it with a louder question. What's worth doing anyway? That's where your power has been waiting all along. Here's a powerful mental exercise the Stoics used to shrink fear down to size. Imagine floating high above the earth, looking down at the bustling world below. From this vantage point, cities become tiny grids, oceans resemble spilled ink, and the voices that once felt overwhelming, they're just whispers lost in the wind. Marcus Aurelius called this the view from above, and he used it to remind himself of life's fleeting nature. Remember how small you are, how insignificant the earth itself is in the vastness of the cosmos. All this anxiety over what others think, it's a shadow passing over a speck of dust. That shift in perspective doesn't dismiss your struggles, it puts them in their rightful place. Picture this, you're about to walk into a room full of people judging your every move, a job interview, a first date, a speech. Your palms sweat, your throat tightens. Now zoom out mentally, see the building from the street, then the city from the sky, then the planet from space. The opinions you fear, they're smaller than grains of sand on an endless shore. This isn't about diminishing your experience, it's about reclaiming your power. When you realize how little judgment matters in the grand tapestry of existence, you stop handing it the microphone to narrate your life. Try this tonight. Stand outside under the stars and let the sheer scale of the universe humble you. Those critical comments from a coworker, the sideways glance from a stranger. They're brief flickers against billions of years of cosmic history. The Stoics didn't use this exercise to make you feel small. They used it to make your fears feel small. Because when you grasp how fleeting human opinions truly are, you stop bending your life to fit them. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not from a place of ego, but from awe. Think of the substance of the whole universe of which you have a very small portion. That's the key. Your worth was never meant to be measured by passing opinions, but by how authentically you occupy your tiny, irreplaceable slice of eternity. Next time judgment looms large, rise above it literally. Let the view from above remind you, the only opinion that expands or contracts your world is the one you choose to amplify. The rest just echoes in an infinite sky. There's a radical idea at the heart of Stoicism that flips fear of judgment on its head. What if the very thing you're resisting could become your greatest ally? The ancient Stoics called this Amifati, a Latin phrase meaning love of fate. It's not about passive acceptance, but about embracing every circumstance, even criticism or disapproval, as raw material for growth. Centuries later, philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche would echo this with his famous declaration, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." Imagine treating judgment not as a threat but as part of life's curriculum, a teacher disguised as an adversary. Think about the last time someone's harsh words kept you up at night. Your mind replayed the scene, tweaking your behavior, imagining ways to avoid that pain again. That's resistance in action, the exhausting battle against what's already happened. Now picture another path, waking up the next morning and saying, "That criticism, it's part of my story now. How can it shape me into someone stronger?" That shift from resisting judgment to integrating it is where fear loses its grip. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, writing, "The obstacle becomes the way." A rival's snide remark wasn't just noise, it was fuel for his self-discipline. A public failure wasn't humiliation, it was data for his improvement. Here's the profound paradox. When you stop fighting judgment, it loses its power to define you. Consider a tree in a storm. It doesn't curse the wind, it uses the resistance to grow deeper roots. Your critics, whether petty or insightful, are that wind. Their words don't determine your strength, your response does. Epictetus, born into slavery and facing constant degradation, embodied this. He taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you relate to what happens that matters." When you Amor Fati, love your fate, including the judgments, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of opinions and start seeing yourself as the architect of their meaning. Try this reframe today. The next time someone judges you, pause and ask, "How could this moment serve me?" Maybe their harsh feedback reveals a blind spot you've avoided addressing. Maybe their dismissal lights a fire under a dream you've been too timid to pursue. or maybe their petty criticism simply shows you whose opinions aren't worth your energy. Amifati isn't about agreeing with every critique, it's about mining even the darkest moments for gold. Nietzsche, despite his fiery reputation, understood this deeply. To those human beings who are of any concern to me, I wish suffering, desolation, sickness, ill treatment, indignities. I wish that they should not remain unfamiliar with profound self-contempt. That's not masochism, it's the recognition that our greatest growth often comes through friction. So the next time fear of judgment whispers in your ear, surprise it. Whisper back, thank you, not because the judgment feels good, but because it's another stitch in the tapestry of your resilience. The world will always have opinions. Your power lies in deciding whether they'll be your chains or your whetstone. Amifati is the key that turns the lock, not to escape judgment, but to walk through it unshaken. Imagine standing on stage, about to deliver a speech that could change your career. Your hands tremble slightly as you scan the crowd, and then you spot them. A few faces in the back whispering, rolling their eyes, maybe even laughing at your opening line. That knot in your stomach tightens. But what if I told you the Stoics wouldn't just face that fear, they'd invite it in for dinner? This is the power of Premeditatio Malorum, the ancient practice of premeditation of evils. It's not about pessimism, it's about vaccination. By mentally rehearsing criticism before it happens, you strip it of its power to shock or derail you. Take Seneca, who would purposely travel with less money, sleep on hard floors, and wear threadbare clothing, not because he enjoyed discomfort, but to confront his fears of poverty before they confronted him. He wrote, "The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." Apply this to judgment. If you've already imagined the worst someone could say and planned your calm response, their words land like feathers, not bricks. Picture a comedian preparing for a tough crowd. They don't just hope for laughter, they rehearse their comeback for the inevitable heckler. That's Premeditatio Malorum in action, turning fear into a script you've already read. Here's how to practice it today. Grab a notebook and finish this sentence. The worst thing someone could judge me for is, maybe it's your accent, your inexperience, or your unconventional ideas. Now write the Stoic rebuttal beneath it. If the fear is, they'll think I'm foolish, your response might be, then I'll be foolish with integrity. Epictetus taught that fools are those who value appearances over character. This isn't just positive thinking, it's strategic armor for your mind. Marcus Aurelius did this daily, visualizing the chaos of court politics before entering the room so nothing could rattle him. But here's the twist. When you actually face judgment after this mental rehearsal, something unexpected happens. The criticism rarely stings as much as you imagined. Often it doesn't come at all. Your preparation shrinks the monster under the bed down to a harmless shadow. That's the magic of this practice. It doesn't just help you endure judgment. It often reveals how much of it existed only in your anticipation. As Seneca put it, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. So next time you hesitate to hit post on that vulnerable blog entry or voice a bold opinion in a meeting, pause. Play the critic's voice in your head first, loud and exaggerated, like a villain in a cartoon. Then step into your Stoic role, unshaken, amused, maybe even grateful for the chance to practice resilience. Because when you've already walked through the fire in your mind, the real sparks feel like warmth. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who shaped Epictetus, had a radical view of speech. Most of us never consider silence isn't just the absence of words, but a forge for strength. He taught we should speak only when we're certain our words will improve upon the silence. Imagine standing in a room where everyone's debating who's right, who's wrong, who's to blame, and you simply choose not to play. That's not weakness, it's the quiet power of a mind that doesn't need to prove itself at every turn. In a world addicted to hot takes and clapbacks, purposeful silence becomes revolutionary. Think about the last time gossip came your way, a coworker whispering about someone's mistakes, a friend dissecting another's choices. It's tempting to jump in, to show you're in the know, to bond over shared judgment. But Stoicism draws a line between speech that builds and speech that tears down. Gossip isn't just noise, it's a trap. It chains you to others' opinions while eroding your integrity. Marcus Aurelius captured this in his journal. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? That question transforms chatter into choice. When you speak only what's true, kind, and useful, your words carry weight, and your silence becomes unshakable. Here's the challenge. Next time someone judges you, whether it's a snide remark or outright criticism, practice stoic silence for an entire day. Not the tense silence of biting your tongue, but the calm silence of a mountain weathering a storm. Watch how quickly their words lose power when you refuse to react. Epictetus trained his students this way. If someone tells you that so and so speaks ill of you, don't defend yourself but reply, yes, and they're probably unaware of my other faults, or they wouldn't have mentioned only these. That disarming humor comes from a place of deep security, the kind built through disciplined silence. Consider the archer who doesn't waste arrows on every target. They wait, aim, release, then let the result speak for itself. Your words should be like those arrows, intentional, precise, and never fired just to hear the sound. Musonius Rufus took this further, suggesting we sometimes speak just to remind ourselves we can, a habit he called the vanity of the tongue. True strength isn't in having the last word, it's in knowing when no word is needed. So when judgment comes, try this experiment. Let the criticism hang in the air unanswered. Notice how your stillness exposes the emptiness of petty opinions. Like a tree that doesn't argue with the wind, your quiet presence becomes the most powerful response of all. Because in the end, people will remember not what was said about you, but how unshakable you stood. Cato the Younger, the Stoic statesman who defied Julius Caesar, faced something far worse than judgment. He faced outright mockery from the most powerful man in Rome. When Caesar published verses ridiculing Cato's stubborn integrity, the Senate gasped. This wasn't just criticism, it was a calculated humiliation designed to break him. But Cato's response, he laughed, not the nervous chuckle of someone pretending not to care, but the deep, unshaken laughter of a man who knew his worth couldn't be scribbled away in a poem. He turned to his friends and said, "What a busy man our Caesar is, conquering nations by day, composing verses by night." That moment captures the essence of Stoic defiance. When you refuse to let someone else's words dictate your self-respect, you reveal a strength no insult can touch. History is full of these quiet giants, people who wore judgment like a loose cloak instead of a straitjacket. Think of Eleanor Roosevelt facing relentless criticism as First Lady, only to say, "Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway." Or Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison hearing he was insignificant, yet emerged unbroken, calling his jailers simply men doing their jobs. These aren't just inspiring stories, they're blueprints. The Stoics understood that role models aren't there to idolize, they're there to imitate. When Epictetus told his students, "If you want to be like Socrates, act like Socrates," he wasn't suggesting memorizing philosophy. He meant standing firm when the world tries to shame you into shrinking. So here's a challenge. Pick one person, historical or in your life, whose resilience in the face of judgment leaves you awestruck. Not because they never felt fear, but because they refused to let it steer their choices. Maybe it's a grandparent who weathered prejudice with quiet dignity, or a colleague who champions unpopular ideas without apology. Now ask yourself, what would they do in your shoes? How would they walk into that room, face that critic, or wear that criticism? Role models aren't just mirrors showing who you admire, they're windows into who you could become. Marcus Aurelius kept a mental roster of mentors, writing, "When you need encouragement, think of the qualities of those around you, the energy of one, the modesty of another, the generosity of a third." He wasn't comparing himself to them. He was borrowing their courage until his own grew strong enough. Consider this: every time you channel Cotto's defiance or Roosevelt's poise, you're not just copying them, you're awakening that same resilience within yourself. Judgment only wins when you believe the verdict, but when you stand in the lineage of those who refused to kneel, you inherit something unshakable: the knowledge that you too can face the Caesars of your life and leave them clutching empty verses. Seneca once wrote a letter to a friend consumed by scandal, and his advice cuts through centuries of noise. Time discovers truth. 3 simple words that hold an ocean of wisdom. Think of history's most vilified figures: Galileo ridiculed for claiming the earth moved, Alan Turing prosecuted for his identity, Rosa Parks branded a troublemaker for sitting down. What seemed like damning judgments in their moment crumbled under time's weight. The Stoics saw this pattern clearly. Opinions are like footprints in wet sand. The tide of days, months, years, it always comes to smooth them away. Here's a question to carry with you. Will this judgment matter in 5 years? Not as a hypothetical, but as a litmus test for your energy. That passive-aggressive comment from a relative at Thanksgiving, the snicker from a classmate when you voiced an idea, the online troll who mistook cruelty for wit, measure them against time's scale. Like a child's tantrum, their echoes fade faster than we fear. Marcus Aurelius meditated on this daily, reminding himself, "Soon you'll be dust or bones, a name at most." And even that name is just a sound, an echo. The judgments we dread rarely outlive the seasons. Consider Vincent van Gogh, who sold maybe 1 painting in his lifetime while critics dismissed his work as chaotic. Today, his art hangs in reverence, and those same critics, their names are trivia questions at best. Or take Frederick Douglass, who was called uppity for demanding basic human rights. Now his words are etched in history, while his detractors are footnotes. Time doesn't just heal, it adjudicates. The Stoics called this the long view, the practice of pulling back from the fever of the present to see the arc of a life, a legacy. Try this exercise tonight. Grab a journal and jot down 3 past judgments that once felt earth-shattering. That haircut your friends teased, the failed project your boss nitpicked, the relationship someone called doomed. Now, with distance, how many still sting? How many even cross your mind? Seneca observed, "Most of what upsets us hasn't happened yet or already passed." We inflame ourselves over opinions that, given time, will evaporate like morning dew. So the next time judgment lands like a blow, press pause. Ask not just, will this matter in 5 years? But could this be the very thing future me respects me for enduring? Because history's clearest lesson is this: those who bend to every gust of opinion leave no mark. But those who stand firm despite the noise become the compasses others later follow. The judgments that feel like walls today, they're just smoke, and time's wind is already blowing. Marcus Aurelius woke every morning as the most powerful man in Rome, emperor, commander, philosopher, and yet his private journal reveals something startling. He wrote, "Throw aside your titles, they're like the bristles on a boar's back." That's the razor-sharp insight at the heart of Stoic detachment from labels. Whether someone crowns you a genius or dismisses you as a fool, these are just words clinging to your skin like burrs, not truths etched into your bones. The Stoics saw this clearly. Titles flattering or cutting are costumes people drape over you based on their limited view of the play, your character. That's the actor beneath the robes. Consider how often we let labels steer our lives. A boss calls you disorganized once, and suddenly you're rearranging your entire identity around that critique. A stranger online dubs you hero for a single act, and now you're chasing that high with every move. Both traps steal the same thing, your autonomy. Epictetus, born a slave, understood this intimately. He taught, if someone calls you a donkey, don't bother arguing, just refuse to carry their baggage. The power isn't in disputing the label, it's in refusing to let it dictate your steps. Here's an exercise to make this real. Grab a pen and paper, write down one label you fear being slapped on you. Maybe it's failure, fraud, or unlovable. Now draw a line down the center. On the left, list every piece of evidence that supposedly proves this label. On the right, counter each with 3 actions or qualities that defy it. That failure label, maybe you missed a promotion, but you also taught yourself guitar last year, nursed a friend through grief, and consistently show up for your team. See how the label shrinks when held against the full spectrum of who you are. Marcus Aurelius did this daily, writing, "They'll say you're this or that. But will you be it? That's the only question." History's most resilient figures mastered this detachment. When Lincoln was called guerrilla by political cartoons, he didn't rage. He quipped, "Well, I suppose it's good for the zoo business." When Marie Curie faced accusations that her radium research was unfeminine, she simply kept measuring, kept observing, until her discoveries silenced the noise. Their secret wasn't thick skin, it was understanding that labels only stick if you stand still long enough for the glue to dry. Think of a tree in autumn. Some will call it barren as leaves fall, others will praise its colors days earlier. The tree, it's too busy preparing for winter to audit opinions. That's Stoic indifference in action, not cold disregard, but wise prioritization. Your energy belongs to your growth, not to managing others' vocabulary. As Marcus scribbled in his journal between battles, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think, not what they call you. Epictetus once told a story about a student who complained bitterly after receiving harsh criticism. The philosopher's response, if someone handed you a gift and you refused to take it, who does it belong to? The student answered, the giver. Epictetus nodded, exactly. So when someone offers you judgment and you don't accept it, it remains theirs, not yours. But here's the twist, sometimes buried in that unwelcome package, there's a sliver of truth worth examining. The Stoic art isn't about dismissing all criticism, it's about sifting through it with the precision of a gold miner, knowing that even in muddy water, there might be flecks of real value. Take the story of Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, who kept a folder labeled Hate Mail in her early days. One scathing letter accused her shapewear of being uncomfortable and overpriced. Instead of tossing it, she dissected it. Was there truth in the discomfort claim? She realized early designs prioritized aesthetics over wearability. That critique became the catalyst for redesigning seams and fabrics, turning a complaint into a multi-million-dollar innovation. This is Epictetus, the obstacle is the way, in action. Judgment isn't just something to endure, it's raw material to repurpose. The key lies in a simple but profound shift from "this person is attacking me" to "what can I extract here?" Imagine criticism as a cracked mirror. You can focus on the cracks, or you can angle it to reflect light somewhere new. A chef who receives a 1-star review calling their soup bland has 2 choices: rage at the customer's palate or ask, "Have I played it too safe with spices lately?" Even unfair critiques often point to blind spots. When a novelist's draft is called confusing, it might not mean the plot is flawed, but perhaps readers need clearer signposts. Try this reframe today. Think of one critique that stung recently. Maybe a coworker called your presentation disjointed, or a friend teased your listening skills. Before dismissing it, play Stoic detective. Ask, is there 1% of this that could help me grow? You don't have to swallow the whole critique, just extract the nutrient. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The critic exposes your flaws. Good. Now you know what to strengthen." That's the alchemy of resilience, transforming leaden judgments into golden feedback. Consider this: Michelangelo didn't see the block of marble as an obstacle, but as the sculpture waiting to be freed. Your critics, they're handing you chisels. Some are clumsy, some unwieldy, but the master artist knows even a rough tool can reveal hidden contours. So the next time judgment comes, ask not, "How do I defend?" but "What can I uncover?" Because the difference between stagnation and growth often hinges on that single question. Marcus Aurelius described a mental stronghold so impenetrable that no insult, no judgment, no outside chaos could breach its walls. He called it the Inner Citadel. Picture a fortress carved from granite, standing solitary on a mountain peak. Storms rage below, but inside, perfect calm. That's the Stoic sanctuary within you, a place where external noise dissolves before it ever reaches your core. In his Meditations, Marcus wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Not in wealth, not in fame, but in the quiet sovereignty of your own mind." This isn't about escapism, it's about mastery. Think of a submarine plunging deep beneath turbulent waves. Up above, hurricanes may whip the ocean into frenzy, but down in the silent depths, the crew works undisturbed. Your inner citadel operates the same way, a psychological depth where you process events without being consumed by them. When a colleague's snide remark lands, you don't let it echo in your halls. You examine it from the watchtower of your rationality, then decide if it merits entry. Epictetus framed this as the ultimate freedom. Build a kind of fence around your attention, so you're not dragged this way and that by outside forces. Here's how to construct yours. Close your eyes and visualize a space, maybe a stone library with towering shelves, a sunlit garden with high walls, or a circular chamber like Marcus' imagined citadel. This is your mental command center. Now, imagine drawing a heavy door shut behind you. The voices outside, the "you're not good enoughs," the "who do you think's," they're muffled now, just faint scratches against ironwood. Inside, there's only your breath, your values, your clarity. The Stoics didn't build this concept for monks and emperors. They designed it for anyone who's ever felt buffeted by the world's opinions. Consider the modern parallels. Athletes tap into this focus before a penalty kick, tuning out roaring crowds to access muscle memory. Surgeons enter this zone during complex procedures, where one stray thought could spell disaster. Your citadel isn't about detachment from life. It's about engagement on your terms. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire amid wars and betrayals, yet his journal reveals a man who could retreat inward to ask, "What's essential here?" That's the power you're cultivating, the ability to step back into yourself when the world demands you lose yourself. Try this tonight. When criticism or self-doubt arises, physically mimic closing a door, a hand gesture, even a deep breath with eyes shut. Signal to your brain that you're entering the citadel. Inside, ask the Stoic questions. Is this within my control? Does this align with my principles? What would my best self do? The walls aren't to keep life out, they're to keep your wisdom in. Because when you stop letting every breeze rattle your windows, you discover something extraordinary. The storm was never inside you to begin with. In ancient Rome, where statues of emperors lined the streets and poets competed for imperial favor, the Stoics stood apart with a radical belief that the only true measure of a person wasn't their fame, wealth, or power, but the quiet strength of their character. While senators schemed for titles and generals waged wars for glory, philosophers like Epictetus taught his students, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This was the heartbeat of Stoic ethics, the conviction that virtue alone, courage, wisdom, justice, discipline constitutes real success, everything else just props on life's stage. Consider the irony of Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, scribbling in his journal, "The applause of the crowd means nothing. What matters is how you applaud your own actions when no one's watching." Here was an emperor who could have drowned in adoration, yet he measured himself by a starker standard, not how many praised him, but whether he deserved that praise. Contrast this with modern culture's obsession with viral moments and follower counts. We chase external validation like Roman citizens scrambling for bread at the circus, always hungry, never full. The Stoic alternative: cultivate an inner harvest so rich that others' opinions become like weather, noticeable, but never definitive of your climate. Imagine two neighbors. One spends weekends polishing his luxury car, hoping for admiring glances. The other volunteers at a shelter, knowing few will ever see her kindness. The Stoics would call only one of them wealthy, not because they scorned material comfort, but because they recognized a deeper truth. Applause fades, but integrity compounds. When Seneca advised his friend Lucilius, he didn't ask, "Are people talking about you?" He asked, "Can you sleep soundly with your own thoughts?" That's the litmus test, not trending topics, but untroubled rest. Here's a challenge for today. Pick one virtue you'd want to embody if all witnesses vanished. Maybe it's patience with a frustrating coworker, honesty when tempted to cut corners, or courage to voice an unpopular truth. Now act on it, not for the story you'll tell later, but for the silent satisfaction of aligning with your principles. The ancient Stoics called this arete excellence of character that shines brightest in the dark, unseen moments. History remembers this lesson in unexpected places. Take Josephine Baker, the glamorous dancer who, at the height of her fame, risked everything to spy for the French resistance during World War II. Her most heroic acts happened in shadows, carrying coded messages in sheet music, knowing discovery meant death. Later, she reflected, "I wasn't really naked, I simply didn't have a dress on." That's Stoic virtue in motion, a life so anchored in purpose that even the grandest stages can't unmoor it. So tonight, as you scroll past another highlight reel, ask yourself, what's growing in your hidden garden? The roots no one sees, that's where unshakable strength begins. Because when your worth is measured by virtues no critic can tarnish, you carry your applause within you, a standing ovation that never ends. Seneca once watched a man trip over his own toga in the Roman Forum, a spectacle that drew jeers from the crowd. Instead of joining the mockery, he turned to his student and said, "Laughter isn't just medicine for the soul, it's armor." That moment captures Stoicism's most underrated weapon against judgment, the ability to meet pettiness not with anger, but with a well-timed smile. Centuries later, stand-up comedian Hassan Minhaj would echo this during a Netflix special when a heckler shouted, "You're not funny." Without missing a beat, he shot back, "Sir, I have a spreadsheet of people who disagree and my wife's at the top." The audience roared, the heckler deflated, and the insult became part of the act. That's the alchemy of humor. It transforms judgment from a dagger to a prop. Think of laughter as psychological judo. When someone throws criticism your way, humor redirects their energy instead of absorbing it. A coworker mocks your unconventional idea. "You're right, it's so crazy it might just get us all promoted." A relative scoffs at your life choices. "Aunt Linda, if I followed your advice, I'd be knitting sweaters for cats by now." These aren't just quips, they're boundary lines drawn in glitter. The Stoics understood that humor isn't about dismissing genuine feedback. It's about refusing to let nitpicking live rent-free in your mind. Marcus Aurelius journaled about this, writing, "The best revenge is to not be like your enemy. What better way to defy pettiness than by refusing to take it seriously?" Consider the physics of tension. A comedian steps on stage knowing some will laugh, some will heckle, but their power lies in deciding which energy to amplify. Your life is no different. When judgment comes, you get to choose. Will you stiffen like a defendant on trial, or lean into the absurdity like a host welcoming unpredictable guests? Comedian Wanda Sykes, facing homophobic slurs early in her career, would deadpan, "Honey, I'm not going to hell, I'm from Virginia. This is hell." By owning the insult, she stripped it of its sting. That's Stoic humor in action, not self-deprecation, but sovereign playfulness. Here's your challenge. Next time judgment lands, experiment with the Seneca syrup. 1 part wit, 2 parts detachment. Maybe your neighbor scoffs at your gardening skills. Instead of defending your tomatoes, sigh dramatically, "I know, my plants are just practicing abstract expressionism." Watch how quickly the dynamic shifts when you're the one steering the joke. Ancient Rome's philosophers and today's comedy clubs agree, laughter doesn't mean you're unaffected. It means you've decided who holds the remote control to your emotions. As Seneca wrote to a friend plagued by gossip, "Consider the source, then consider the comedy." Because in the end, the people obsessed with judging others, they're usually the ones starring in their own unintended punchlines. Cato the Younger walked past his own statue in the Roman Forum without so much as a glance. When a senator scoffed, "Don't you care that your likeness stands there for eternity?" Cato shrugged, "I'd be more concerned if it started giving speeches." That moment captures Stoicism's most liberating insight about reputation. It's not that fame is worthless, but that it's weightless unless you choose to carry it. The Stoics called things like reputation preferred indifference nice to have, but meaningless in defining your worth. 2,000 years later, we still chase the same illusion, treating others' perceptions like mirrors when they're really just windows, cloudy, distorted, and revealing more about the viewer than the viewed. Think about how much energy we pour into managing impressions. The LinkedIn profile crafted to impress strangers, the Instagram story edited 12 times before posting, the nervous laugh when someone mispronounces your name at a networking event. Now imagine Cato's response, not disdain, but amused detachment. When Julius Caesar ordered statues of himself erected across Rome, Cato joked they should come with wheels, so they can flee when his popularity fades. That's the Stoic secret. Reputation isn't a crown to wear, but a costume anyone can rent. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling an empire, wrote in his private journal, "Fame is like river water. It flows where gravity takes it, not where you demand." Here's a revealing exercise. Grab a notebook and finish this sentence. "I'd be mortified if people thought I was." Your answer might point to the reputation you've overvalued. Maybe it's lazy, unprofessional, or unlovable. Now ask who decides those definitions. A boss who mistakes busyness for productivity. A social media algorithm that equates silence with irrelevance. The Stoics would argue that clinging to reputation is like building your home on sand. Every tide of opinion reshapes your foundation. Cato built his on granite, declaring, "I'd rather men ask why I have no statue than why I do." History brims with these contrasts. Consider Nikola Tesla, who watched rival Thomas Edison bask in celebrity while his own revolutionary ideas were ridiculed. Rather than courting the press, he spent his final years feeding pigeons in a hotel room, content that his work would outshine any headlines. Contrast that with modern influencers deleting posts over minor backlash. The difference isn't about era, it's about where you place the measuring stick of your life. As Seneca wrote to a fame-obsessed friend, "You're trading gold for applause, and the crowd always runs out of claps." Try this reframe today. Each time you hesitate over how something might look, whether it's an unconventional hobby, a career shift, or simply going makeup-free, picture Cotto walking past his own statue. Not with pride, not with scorn, but with the quiet confidence of a man who knew his value wasn't chiseled in stone. Because here's the truth no algorithm will tell you: the reputation you're guarding. It was never yours to begin with. It's on loan from people who'll change their minds by next Tuesday. Your character, though, that's yours to sculpt, and unlike marble, it only grows stronger when the spotlight moves on. Epictetus once described adversity as a blacksmith's forge, the heat that tempers weak iron into unbreakable steel. He asked his students, what would become of the blade if it complained against the hammer? That's the Stoic lens for judgment, not as punishment but as the very friction that polishes your character. Picture Hercules standing before his 12 labors. Each impossible task, slaying the Hydra, cleaning the Augean stables, wasn't just a test of strength, but a sculptor's chisel shaping his legacy. Your critics, they're handing you your own labors. Every harsh comment, every rolled eye, every doubter whispering, "You can't." These aren't obstacles to your journey. They're the journey itself. Take the story of Malala Yousafzai, who faced bullets for advocating girls' education. In her memoir, she recalls lying in a hospital bed, thinking not of revenge, but of how the attack revealed the depth of her convictions. "They thought the bullet would silence me," she wrote, "but out of that silence came thousands of voices." That's the Stoic reframe in action. Judgment as a litmus test for what you truly value. When a former mentor dismisses your ambitions as naive, or a stranger online mocks your passion as frivolous, you're being handed a gift, the chance to ask, is this dream worth defending? Hercules didn't become a legend by avoiding labors. He became one by embracing them. Here's a practice to transform judgment from wound to wisdom. Grab a journal and finish this sentence. "The last time someone criticized me for it taught me." Maybe a boss's harsh feedback revealed your resilience. Perhaps a friend's skepticism sharpened your clarity. Epictetus urged his students to see every antagonist as a training partner. When you're insulted, think, "He's doing me a favor. He's showing me where I'm still tender." That shift from victim to student changes everything. The co-worker who undermines you, they're giving you a masterclass in poise. The relative who scoffs at your unconventional path, they're the mirror showing how firmly you stand. Consider the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold lacquer. The fractures aren't hidden, they're illuminated. That's the alchemy of Stoic resilience. Your cracks, the places where judgment landed hardest, become the very lines that catch the light. Marcus Aurelius meditated on this while leading troops into battle, writing, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Next time criticism stings, pause and ask not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What is this revealing about me?" Because the judgments that feel like storms are often just weather vanes showing you which way your inner compass points. So let them talk, let them doubt, let them scribble their verdicts in disappearing ink. Your character isn't built in the safety of silence, but in the crucible of their noise. Every judgment is another labor, another chance to prove, if only to yourself, that you're not just enduring the fire, you're forging something unbreakable. Gandhi once said, "Nobody can hurt me without my permission," a principle that could have been lifted straight from Epictetus' lectures. The Stoics called this concept withholding assent, the deliberate choice not to validate harmful words by reacting to them. Picture a child throwing pebbles at a mountain. The mountain doesn't flinch, doesn't retaliate, doesn't even acknowledge the assault. Why? Because its identity isn't up for debate. That's the power you wield when you master non-reaction. Every insult, every backhanded compliment, every passive-aggressive jab is like those pebbles. They only land if you turn them into boulders by catching them. History's most transformative figures understood this. When Gandhi launched the Salt March to protest British rule, colonial officers beat unarmed protesters bloody. Yet the marchers didn't raise a fist or even a shout. Their silence wasn't weakness, it was a deafening refusal to play the game. The Stoics would recognize this instantly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence. Not the silence of suppression, but the silence of sovereignty, the kind that says, 'Your words don't have jurisdiction here.'" Here's how to practice this today. Next time someone aims a barb your way, institute a 10-second pause, not to stew but to step back, like a scientist observing an experiment. In that space, ask, "Does this deserve my energy?" Most insults are like spoiled fruit, grab them, and you're left with sticky hands. Gandhi's protesters could have screamed obscenities at their oppressors. Instead, they picked up their broken glasses and kept walking. That's withholding assent in action, treating words as wind, not weapons. Think of a tennis player who refuses to return their opponent's serve. The game can't continue. Your critics rely on your returns, your flushed cheeks, your defensive texts, your anxious revisions. When you stop volleying, their power dissolves. Epictetus trained his students this way. If someone tries to insult you and you don't feel insulted, what happens to the insult? It vanishes midair like an arrow shot into fog. Try this reframe. Imagine criticism as a script handed to you. You're not obligated to perform it. Gandhi didn't recite the lines the British wrote for him. He burned the entire playbook. Your 10-second pause is the match. Use it not to suppress reaction, but to reclaim choice, because the greatest power isn't in winning the argument, it's in declining to have it on their terms. Consider the oak tree that doesn't debate the storm. It sways, it bends, it lets the tempest exhaust itself. Your silence can be just as unshakable, not the silence of someone with nothing to say, but of someone who knows some words aren't worth saying. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you'll find strength. The next time judgment howls at your door, try something radical. Don't answer. Watch how quickly the wind changes direction when it meets no resistance. Seneca sat down to write a letter to his friend Lucilius with an urgency that still echoes today. Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. That's the Stoic practice of Memento Mori, remembering death not to terrify but to clarify. Picture standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at the ocean crashing against rocks. Suddenly, the gossip from yesterday's meeting or the snide comment about your outfit feels as weightless as sea foam. The Stoics wielded this perspective like a lantern in the dark. When you hold life's brevity in one hand and others' opinions in the other, the choice becomes obvious. History's greatest minds kept death close as an advisor. Steve Jobs famously told Stanford graduates, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life." That's Memento Mori stripped of ancient robes, a Silicon Valley CEO and a Roman philosopher separated by millennia, united by the same insight. When Jobs returned to Apple in the late 90s, critics called his minimalist designs childish and his product cuts suicidal. He shrugged. Death had already whispered in his ear during his cancer scare, teaching him what Seneca knew. The whole future lies in uncertainty, live immediately. Here's a visceral exercise. Grab a notebook and write your eulogy. Not the sanitized version for the funeral pamphlet, but the raw truth. What do you want your closest friend to whisper at your graveside? She never missed a chance to please strangers. Or, he lived so fiercely, the ground trembles to hold him. When you measure your choices against eternity, the opinions of passing spectators lose their grip. Marcus Aurelius meditated on this daily, scribbling, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. Not the trending hashtags, not the office politics, just the quiet certainty that today could be your canvas. Consider the Japanese concept of yujin, the profound awareness of the universe's tragic beauty. A samurai might pause under cherry blossoms, watching petals fall, knowing his own life could end as swiftly. Yet this awareness didn't paralyze him, it sharpened his resolve to act with honor. Your critics, they're like background actors in that scene. Their lines matter only if you give them a script. Seneca drove this home in his letters. Death will come, and it will have your ears. Why strain to hear lesser voices now? Try this tonight. Stand before a mirror and say aloud, "I will die." Not morbidly, but matter-of-factly, like noting the weather. Feel how the air changes. That project you're too scared to launch. The relationship you're too timid to mend. The creative risk you've postponed for someday. Death leans in and murmurs, "Someday is a thief." The opinions that once loomed large shrink to their true size, fleeting sparks against the night sky. When the Roman general Scipio Africanus was accused of corruption, he didn't rally a defense. He walked to the forum with a piece of charcoal, sketched his conquests in Spain, then turned to his accusers. "On this day I defeated Carthage." What did you do? The crowd fell silent. That's the power of perspective when you measure your life against legacy. Petty judgments become background noise. As Seneca wrote while facing his own execution, "Death is the impartial judge who'll silence all critics. Why let their interim chatter drown your symphony?" So the next time fear of judgment whispers, hand it an hourglass. Watch the sand fall, grain by grain, and ask, will this opinion outlast the dust? The answer will set you free. The Stoics spoke of a mythical figure called the sage, someone so grounded in wisdom that praise and blame rolled off them like rain on marble. While we scroll through feeds thirsting for likes, the sage walks through life untouched by others' opinions, not out of arrogance, but from knowing a deeper truth. Validation is a mirage in the desert of human connection. Picture two travelers, one constantly checking their reflection in every passing window, the other striding forward with eyes on the horizon. That's the difference between modern approval-seeking and Stoic sovereignty. The sage doesn't reject kindness or feedback. They simply refuse to let external noise drown out their inner compass. Consider how we've turned validation into a currency. A post goes viral, and suddenly we're addicted to the dopamine of notifications. A coworker's offhand compliment fuels us for days, while a stranger's dismissive comment ruins an afternoon. The sage would find this baffling, like trading gold for confetti. Marcus Aurelius hinted at this when he wrote, "It's silly to try to escape other people's faults. They're inescapable, just try to escape your own." The modern twist, we're not just noticing others' faults, we're letting them dictate our self-worth. The sage superpower is inversion. Instead of asking, "Do they like me?" they ask, "Do I respect how I'm showing up?" Here's a thought experiment. Next time you're about to make a decision, whether it's choosing an outfit, posting an opinion, or pitching an idea, pause and channel your inner sage. Imagine them standing beside you, whispering, "Will this choice hold meaning when the applause fades?" The sage doesn't wear bland clothes to avoid judgment or bold ones to provoke it. They dress for utility and self-expression, period. They don't silence controversial views or adopt them for attention. They speak truths that align with their principles, regardless of the room's temperature. History offers glimpses of this ideal. When Diogenes the philosopher who lived in a barrel was visited by Alexander the Great, the conqueror asked what he could do for him. Diogenes famously replied, "Step aside, you're blocking my son." No groveling, no flattery, just unshakable ownership of his needs. Contrast that with today's influencers editing their personalities to fit algorithms. The sage lesson isn't about rudeness. It's about recognizing that even the mightiest opinions lose their force when you stop bracing against them. Try this today. For 1 hour, act as if you're the last person on earth. Not in a post-apocalyptic sense, but as an exercise in detached authenticity. Post that photo without filtering out your flaws. Voice that idea without softening its edges. Wear what brings you joy, not what earns nods. Notice how quickly the imaginary audience in your head loses its grip when you stop feeding it attention. The Stoic sage isn't some unattainable myth. They're the version of you that remembers approval was never the point. Growth is, because here's the secret the sage knows. Chasing approval is like painting a masterpiece, then turning it to the wall so others can admire the frame. Your life isn't a performance, it's a living, breathing work of art meant to be experienced from the inside out. The critics, they're just passing shadows on the gallery wall. The real exhibition goes on with or without their commentary. Imagine standing at the edge of a diving board for the first time. The water below looks miles away, your knees lock, and every instinct screams to climb back down. Now picture instead starting at the pool steps, inching deeper with each breath until the water feels familiar. That's the essence of the Stoic graded ascent, a philosophy of building courage not through reckless leaps, but through deliberate, manageable steps. The ancient Stoics understood what modern psychology confirms. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, but the habit of acting despite it, one small victory at a time. Take the artist who dreams of sharing their work but freezes at the thought of criticism. The Stoic approach wouldn't demand a gallery opening on day one. It might start with texting a sketch to a trusted friend, then posting anonymously online, then finally signing their name. Each step is a brick in the bridge between fear and freedom. Epictetus taught this method to his students, comparing it to strengthening a muscle. No one wakes up lifting boulders. You begin with pebbles, then stones, then rocks. That's graded ascent, not avoiding judgment, but acclimating to it like a diver adjusts to colder waters. Consider how FDR overcame paralyzing fear of public scrutiny after polio left him wheelchair-bound. He didn't rush back to political rallies. He practiced speaking first in intimate settings, then small groups, rebuilding his confidence stroke by stroke. Or think of Brené Brown, who studies vulnerability yet admits she still feels nausea before posting personal stories online. Courage isn't about outrunning discomfort, it's about outgrowing it through repeated exposure. Here's your challenge. Pick one arena where fear of judgment holds you back. Maybe it's speaking up in meetings, wearing bold fashion, or sharing creative work. Now design your own ladder of exposure. If networking terrifies you, start by commenting on a LinkedIn post, then message one person, then attend a small event. The Stoics called this premeditation of scale, breaking down daunting challenges into increments so small that resistance has no foothold. Marcus Aurelius used this tactic before difficult negotiations, writing, "The mountain ahead is climbed not in one stride, but in 10,000 steps." What makes this approach uniquely Stoic is its focus on intentional progress over dramatic gestures. Unlike motivational slogans urging you to jump and the net will appear, graded ascent is about weaving the net yourself, knot by knot. A comedian doesn't debut at Madison Square Garden. They hone their craft in tiny, forgiving clubs where mistakes become lessons. A writer afraid of rejection might first share work in a low-stakes forum before submitting to prestigious journals. Tonight, try this. Write down a fear, perhaps being laughed at for my singing voice. Then craft a 3-rung ladder. Hum in the shower today, sing along to the car radio tomorrow, join a casual karaoke night next week. Notice how each step dulls the edge of fear, proving what Seneca observed. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The critic's voice in your head grows quieter each time you reaffirm, through action, that survival isn't just possible but probable. History's most resilient figures mastered this incremental bravery. Rosa Parks didn't spark the Montgomery bus boycott on her first day of activism. She spent years attending smaller protests, building her resolve. J.K. Rowling didn't submit Harry Potter to publishers without first sharing chapters with a writing group. Courage compounds, not through grand, isolated acts, but through daily decisions to lean slightly further into discomfort. So this week, do one thing scared, not the monumental thing, just the next thing. Post that poem in a supportive Facebook group before dreaming of a book deal. Wear that bright jacket to the grocery store before donning it for a presentation. Each small yes to courage is a no to fear's dictatorship, because what the Stoics knew, and what science now confirms, is that bravery isn't a trait you're born with. It's a skill forged in the ordinary moments when you choose to step forward, even if your voice shakes, and with each step, the world grows wider. Marcus Aurelius gazed at the stars from his military camp and wrote words that still ripple through time. What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee. That single line cracks open the final Stoic secret to dissolving fear of judgment, recognizing that every critic, every skeptic, every passerby with an opinion is part of the same fragile, magnificent human hive as you. Stoic cosmopolitanism wasn't about globe-trotting. It was a radical philosophy of belonging that saw insults as misdirected cries for connection. When someone judges you harshly, they're not standing across some unbridgeable divide. They're standing in shoes you might have worn under different circumstances, fighting battles you can't yet see. Consider the last time someone's criticism left you seething. Maybe it was a relative scoffing at your life choices or an online stranger mocking your passion. Now imagine zooming out, way out, until you see both of you as tiny figures on a pale blue dot in the cosmos. From that vantage point, your disagreements shrink to the size of dust motes dancing in sunlight. That's not to diminish your pain, but to reveal its true scale. The Stoics called this sympatheia, the interdependence of all things. Marcus described it vividly. A branch cut from its neighboring branch is simultaneously cut from the whole tree. So too, a person severed from another has broken from the whole human community. Your critic isn't some alien force. They're another branch on your shared tree, trembling from storms you both endure. History brims with this unexpected kinship. When Lincoln appointed his fiercest political rival, Edwin Stanton, as Secretary of War, aides gasped at the risk. But Lincoln saw what others missed. Stanton's scathing critiques came from the same fierce patriotism that fueled his own leadership. Years later, Stanton would weep at Lincoln's deathbed, whispering, "Now he belongs to the ages." The very man who once called Lincoln a long-armed ape became his most loyal defender. The Stoics would nod knowingly. Judgment often masks unrecognized common ground. Here's how to make this tangible. Next time judgment stings, pause and play detective with empathy. That coworker who ridicules your method, might they fear becoming obsolete in a changing workplace? The parent who nitpicks your choices, could they be grappling with their own unfulfilled dreams? This isn't about excusing cruelty, but about diffusing its power by recognizing the humanity behind the harshness. Epictetus, born into slavery, held this view even toward his oppressors. When someone acts badly, ask yourself, how could they see this as good or necessary? That question doesn't justify harm, it liberates you from taking it personally. Try this tonight. Light a candle and list 3 criticisms that still echo in your mind. Now, rewrite each one as if it were a hidden cry for help. Your idea won't work becomes, I'm scared of failing too. You'll never succeed transforms into, I've forgotten how to hope. Suddenly, the judgments feel less like attacks and more like distorted love letters from fellow travelers. This is what Marcus meant when he wrote, the best revenge is to be unlike your enemy, but first to see they were never truly your enemy at all. Stand on any crowded street today and you'll witness a paradox: thousands of separate lives, each convinced their struggles are unique, yet all breathing the same air, all bound by the same cosmic laws. The executive stressing over quarterly reports and the barista steaming milk, the teenager agonizing over acne and the elder mourning lost youth, all momentarily forget their currents in the same vast river. Your harshest critic, they're not some villain in your story. They're a mirror showing you where you still cling to separation. So let this final insight sink deep. Fear of judgment thrives on the illusion of isolation. But when you truly grasp in your bones, not just your thoughts, that every sneer, every eye roll, every cutting remark comes from someone as fragile and hopeful as yourself, something extraordinary happens. The armor you built to deflect opinions starts to feel heavy, and one day, without fanfare, you'll find you've set it down altogether, walking lighter through the world, unburdened by verdicts that were never really about you to begin with. The hive hums on, and you're finally free to hear its music. We've journeyed through 22 Stoic Insights, each one a tool to dismantle the prison of others' opinions and reclaim the one thing no critic can touch, your autonomy. From recognizing what's within your control to laughing off pettiness, from embracing criticism as fuel to standing firm like Cotto before his own statue, these aren't just philosophical concepts. They're a lived practice, a daily choice to stop handing your peace over to strangers and start building an unshakable inner citadel. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending judgment doesn't sting. It's the ultimate liberation, the realization that your worth was never up for debate in the first place. Epictetus, the philosopher who turned enslavement into mastery of the mind, left us with a gem sharper than any insult. If anyone tells you that someone speaks ill of you, don't defend yourself but reply, he must not know my other faults or he would have mentioned these too. That's not just wit, it's the distilled essence of Stoic freedom. When you can meet judgment with amusement rather than armor, you reveal the secret truth. Opinions only have the power you assign them. Here's your invitation to make these insights stick. Grab a journal and commit to one insight each day. Maybe today you'll practice Seneca's art of silence, letting gossip pass like a ship in the night. Tomorrow, you might channel Marcus Aurelius' view from above, shrinking judgments to cosmic insignificance. The day after, try graded exposure, stepping just slightly beyond your comfort zone. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. The Stoics didn't wake up enlightened. They practiced these principles like blacksmiths hammering steel, blow by deliberate blow. As you close this video, take a breath and ask yourself, which insight struck a chord? Was it the revelation that critics often mirror their own insecurities? The mental image of Cotto laughing at Caesar's verses, or perhaps the simple, grounding question, will this judgment matter in 5 years? Drop a comment below, not for applause but to solidify your resolve. Because the most powerful transformations happen in community, where one person's courage becomes another's catalyst. The path ahead isn't about never feeling fear again. It's about feeling it and stepping forward anyway. Not because the crowd cheers you on, but because you finally learn to trust the only voice that ever truly mattered, your own. The Stoics handed you the keys 2,000 years ago. Today, it's your turn to turn them in the lock and walk through unshackled, unafraid, and utterly free.